Hey everybody, thanks again for downloading our content. I am Jake Wiskerson, your host, and I'm going to take a sabbatical for a few weeks, so you're going to hear the same exact introduction over the next few podcasts, but I promise they're all good. They're actually a reboot of something that we did back in December of 2018 and January of 2019, where we did a 6-part series on emotional functioning. So I take the 10 core emotions as studied by Carol Izard. That's 2 R's and 2 L's in Carol, I-Z-A-R-D, Izard, if you want to look him up. And it's from the book that he wrote called The Psychology of Emotions. And I take these 10 emotions, 2 per episode, and try to compare and contrast them and go a little bit deeper into what their function is in our brain. So I hope you enjoy it. This is going to be a 5-part or 6-part series, I should say. But alongside this, I invite you to pay attention to the Zephyr Wellness accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, because we're going to be posting videos about the individual emotions as they go through. And so you're going to get a video overview if you follow that, and they'll also be housed on YouTube, as well as this podcast. So feel free to share this stuff around. I think it's great. I think emotional functioning is something that should be taught in all schools. Personally, if I had my magic wand, I would wave it over all of kindergarten through 12th education and teach it throughout, but specifically in the freshman high school health curriculum that is universally required. We have to study lots of things about health in our 9th grade year. And emotional functioning, I think, should be one of them, and I think it should be this model. Personally, I study this stuff quite a bit, and I've yet to find such a comprehensive, overarching review of literature as what Izard did in the late 80s, early 90s. So this is why I present it. It makes a lot of sense. It's very straightforward. It's empirically based. It's well researched and studied. And if you want to check out his book, The Psychology of Emotions, it's quite expensive because it's out of print now, but it is very, very good. And if not, just listen to me, because I've done what I think is a decent enough job in distilling it down into some digestible pieces for you, and then you can go apply that in your own life. So enjoy the series, and if you hear my voice repeated over the next few episodes with some repeat content from about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, don't be surprised. I am just taking a break because I need one. In the meantime, if you need to check in on your emotional functioning, your mental health, go take a free and anonymous mental health exam, not an exam. What do we call these things? Survey, not a survey. Screening. That's the word I'm looking for there. Losing my mind these days, talking about mental health, and I lose my own mind. Take a free and anonymous mental health screening at WTTA.org/love. That's walkthetalkamerica.org. And you can click the thing all around the website. That organization is something I do in my free time. Really almost more of a full-time gig now, where we're trying to bring mental health treatment and care and personal well-being to the firearms community. And that would be people who use firearms in their daily lives for work, or hobbyists or collectors, whatnot, because historically firearms owners have been suspicious of getting their mental health tended to for a whole bunch of reasons, some of them legitimate, some of them perceived. And the flip side of that coin is to also make our mental health community of clinicians savvy and competent in understanding what firearms culture is like. So there's lots of resources on the site. We continue to build our organization, and I'm very proud of the work that we're doing. But one of the major things we do is offer these free and anonymous mental health screening tools that are hosted by Mental Health America. And you can check out mentalhealthamerica.net for more on them if you'd like. But in the meantime, get a screening. Get yourself taken care of. There are 2 in Spanish, the anxiety and the depression one, but I think there's 13 or 14 screenings overall. So check it out and share with a friend. Also, if you haven't, check out Audible. Audible kicks us a few bucks every time somebody signs up for a free 30-day trial at their website. And if you use audibletrial.com/noggin notes, that's how we get our little kickback, which is great because it helps to offset some of the costs. Turns out it's really expensive to host a podcast for 3.5 years. And now Noggin Notes has 3 podcasts under the same brand. So there's this Noggin Notes, and then there's Noggin Notes Africa and Noggin Notes Cambodia, all with exceptional content. I'm very, very proud to be affiliated with that too. Safiso, our founder, has done an amazing job hustling and working really hard to get great content creators, and the hosts have done a great job getting guests. So share this stuff around, and let's make the world a better place. I'll see you guys all in a few weeks. Hey, welcome back to the Noggin Notes podcast. I'm Jake Wiskerson, and this episode is about fear and surprise. Those are the last two emotions we're going to cover in this 5-part emotion series, 2 per part for a total of 10. And the reason I paired the emotions the way that it is because a lot of them are related to each other. These two don't necessarily relate, but surprise just kind of envelops all of it, and it's a much shorter emotion to explain. So I'm going to spend the bulk of this on fear, but in the meantime, you can learn about Zephyr Wellness, which is the sponsor of the show, and that's my company that I co-own with my co-owner, Lindsay Bell, in Reno, Nevada, and in Sparks, Nevada. And if you've never been to Reno and Sparks, you should. And if you come by, say hi to us. We're also operating in the rural areas of northern Nevada, pushing into schools and bringing care to people who may be inhibited by different things like transportation or children whose parents work during the days and can't get them to a regular daytime appointment. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing. And if you want to learn more, check out zephyrwellness.org. Check out the Zephyr Wellness YouTube channel. It's basically just one guy, me, doing videos, much like this podcast, but in video format. You can see what I look like with a beard, without a beard, with my kid, without my kid. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about emotions and how you can learn more. If you're listening to this on Dash Radio, or if you've only ever known us as a podcast, Noggin Notes is not just a podcast. It's a mobile app as well, and I encourage you to download the mobile app because it's an awesome way to track your emotions and then link them to the thoughts and experiences that result in those emotions. And what you can do there is, so you click on one of the core 10 emotions, you then click on something a little bit more specific, a synonym emotion perhaps, and that'll lead you to an area where you can make a note, hence the name Noggin Notes, and those notes get compiled into a timeline that you can then review either with your counselor or your therapist or just on your own. So it becomes a digital journal of sorts, all for the purpose of increasing personal self-awareness and hopefully helping you live a better, happier life and bringing more peace into your world. So download the Noggin Notes app if you haven't and check that out. It's a great tool for gaining insight. This is fear and surprise, and without further delay, let's enjoy the podcast. So today we're talking about surprise and fear, and it will go in that order actually, because there's a lot more to be said about fear than surprise, and I'm just going to save that for the end of the show. So the first part of the show, I'm going to talk about surprise, and just to give an overview for those who may be tuning in just now, this is the 5th part of a 5-part series. You don't have to necessarily take them in any particular order, but this concludes it, and we're doing 2 emotions per part. And they're all on a continuum from very small to very large. So the small end of surprise might be, surprise, all the way up to astonishment. We might have startling in there somewhere, or shock. So those are some of the synonyms that you can use with surprise. And then fear, you can have a little bit of fear where you're a little scared, alarmed, nervous. Maybe we might call that somewhere on the fear continuum, all the way up to terror. Terror would be the most fear that you could possess, and these are all triggered by various interpretations of events and so forth. We can also manifest emotions from our mind based on where we direct our attention, and all emotions serve an adaptive function, meaning they tell us something. They're neither positive nor negative, although we certainly attribute whether or not we like something more or less than the other thing. And we call them plus or minus emotions, or positive or negative emotions, and fear is probably one of those negative ones, and surprise is somewhere in the middle. It's probably less pleasant than joy, happiness, probably more pleasant than guilt, shame, contempt, disgust, so forth. So we want to acknowledge that they're neither positive nor negative. They're simply informative, even though we have judgments about what we want to feel. What we really need to be doing is learning from them. So what do we learn from the emotion of surprise? Well, surprise tells us that something has happened that we did not expect, and it also serves as a reboot mechanism to clear out the system and prepare us for what is about to happen subsequently. So often we refer to the first thing that happens in the order of the brain is the fight or flight reflex, right? The fight, flight, or freeze, as it is sometimes called, and that's triggered through the amygdala. And the amygdala, or the amygdalae, actually, there's two of them on either side of the brain at the back of your, like the middle rear of your brain. They respond to stimulus, and it says, "Hey, brain, something's happening. Engage," and then subsequently your body engages beyond that. So surprise is activated by a sharp increase in stimulation. So the external condition for surprise is like any sudden and unexpected event. And I'll clarify unexpected a little bit later. But the event may be, a thunderclap, or it may be a gunshot, or boom of fireworks, or a slamming door, or maybe just a friend suddenly appears that you didn't expect. And so you have a moment where the system resets and clears out the chemicals that may have been existing and says, be prepared, something else is happening. And you may be wondering what chemicals are just hovering in your brain. Well, when we're at rest, we're not entirely unemotive. In fact, if you listen to the interest excitement podcast that I did, I think that was excitement and joy, if I remember correctly. So excitement and happiness were in the same podcast, but excitement and interest on the same continuum. And it said that when we're at rest, we're not fully non-emotional. In fact, the emotion that keeps us awake and alert is that of interest. So we're interested in what's going on, at least enough to stay awake. So you can be just sitting doing something and you're interested in it. Whether or not you actually concede that you're interested in something like a report at work is aside from the point. But the emotion that's rolling through your head is interest. And then maybe a door slams or a book falls off a cabinet, and then surprise kicks in, and I snap my fingers like that, like boom, there it is. Like you're surprised that happens, and it's telling the brain to pay attention. So everybody's familiar with this, but it's really difficult to describe, and one reason for that is that it doesn't last very long. It's probably the most fleeting feeling that we have in our brains. And it almost, because it's so fleeting, it almost doesn't seem like it should be one of the 10 core emotions that we have. But it is, because it stands alone unto itself in not only its function, but also it's not like anything else. It doesn't get combined to be its own to be something else. Like jealousy combines often with fear and maybe interest, or fear and happiness might be jealousy. So surprise stands alone, neurologically speaking. And the situations that evoke surprise are usually experienced as being about as pleasant as situations that elicit interest. So interest, excitement, surprise, happiness, joy, those words are all usually associated with something positive and pleasant and enjoyable. But like I said earlier, it's probably, surprise probably lands just below happiness and interest, and yet above, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, contempt. So, if we're thinking about what the function is of surprise and why we continue to have it, we want to pay heed to the significance that even though it's very fleeting and it motivates very little action, we know that it prepares us to be able to deal with sudden changes. So from an evolutionary standpoint, failure to change one's own ability to motivate after the sudden appearance of, say, a predator could result in harm or death. So we don't just instantly jump to fear because something dangerous appears. What we do is we process the surprise first, because like I said, it wipes the mechanism clean. So I'll get more into fear in a minute, but I already teased it a little bit. It's basically to tell you that a danger or a threat is present. So we'll talk about that after the break. Actually, I'm going to take a break in a couple of minutes, and we'll get into fear. But for now, let's continue focusing on surprise. And I want to talk about how surprise usually is associated with an unexpected event, but there's some research. It's actually a literature review from William Charlesworth, who studied the function of surprise and defined that there's a difference between unexpected